Make no mistake, everyone in the UFC is a world-class competitor, not including those like CM Punk who were solely brought in to raise pay-per-view buys. Still, for one reason or another, there are times where one fighter completely outclasses their opponent, be it due to a clash of styles or just being thrown into the deep end too quickly. This is MMA Hub, and let's take a look at the most dominant performances in UFC history. Other than his bout with this random large cat, UFC lightweight champion Khabib is arguably the most dominant fighter in history. Other than a tough battle with Gleison Tibau, the Eagle has not really been tested in the UFC. Khabib ran through the competition dominating Michael Johnson, RDA, Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, and Justin Gaethje, but perhaps his most dominant victory was over Edson Barboza at UFC 219. The Eagle took Edson to the ground and mauled him, landing over 154 strikes, while the Brazilian striker was only able to land 25, with most being short punches from the bottom. During the mid-2010s, UFC bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey was making headlines. After steamrolling through her competition in the UFC, Rousey was set to take on Holm at Marble Stadium in Dockland, Australia in front of over 56,000. The bookies had Ronda as a -2,000 favorite, essentially giving Holm no chance to win. However, Holm had a decorated boxing career prior to MMA. During the fight, Ronda was seen pressuring forward against the counter striker, showing little defense as she got pieced up and eventually finished by a head kick. After avenging his loss to Nate Diaz at UFC 202, Conor McGregor reset his focus on becoming a double champ by taking on the champion at that time, Eddie Alvarez. Prior to his two fights with Nate Diaz, Conor was set to take on Rafael dos Anjos for the lightweight belt, yet RDA broke his foot. During the build-up to McGregor and Alvarez, many would agree Alvarez surprisingly held his own on the mic.
Welfare, bro. Okay, then you ain't no man. You took welfare. Okay, don't talk about money. Don't you talk about money. Then what wasn't it? You took money from single moms. Single moms go on welfare, not men. You don't talk about money, alright? Keep your mouth shut when it talks about money.
The two squared off at UFC 205 at Madison Square Garden, being the first event to take place since the ban on MMA had been lifted. Perhaps it was the bright lights that were too much for the Underground King, as he proceeded to get mauled by McGregor, getting dropped 3 times and barely surviving the initial round. The second round would be no different, as Conor finished Alvarez via strikes, making it a one-sided affair. In a fight that showcased a change in generation, UFC champion at the time, Mauricio Shogun Rua took on a young Jon Jones for the light heavyweight title. This fight came about on short notice after Jones' teammate Rashad Evans had to pull out of the fight with Shogun due to an injury, and boy did Jones make the most of this opportunity. The bout took place at UFC 128 and Jones put on a clinic, finishing Shogun off with knees. This was foreshadowing for Jones, as he now is one of the most dominant champions of all time. Ronda Rousey makes the list a second time for taking on the Brazilian bantamweight Amanda Nunes. During the build-up, the focus was solely on Ronda, but when they squared off at UFC 207, Ronda got mauled. Nunes proceeded to walk Rousey down with her hands by her side, showing absolute disdain for Ronda's striking ability. Nunes would go on to defeat Ronda in 48 seconds in the first round by TKO, which essentially ended Rousey's MMA career. In the eyes of many, Brian Ortega was going to defeat dominant champion at the time Max Holloway. Ortega was a wild brawler who had a solid chin, great cardio, and was a beast on the ground. However, Max showed why he is one of the greatest when he dismantled Ortega. Holloway landed 290 significant strikes, which at the time became a new record. By the end of the bout, Ortega was barely recognizable, as doctors had to step in and call the fight. This past weekend at UFC on ABC 1, Max Holloway mauled Calvin Kattar. During the build of the fight, Calvin claimed his boxing was much better than Max's, though that was not the case during the fight, as Holloway dominated Kattar, landing a record-setting 445 significant strikes during the bout. We even got to see Holloway screaming at Kattar in the commentary desk that he's the best boxer in the UFC. And these were 5 dominant UFC performances. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.